Subscribe to Mantold for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. My wife ended our marriage and my career with a phone call that lasted less than a minute. Ethan, today's your last day at the company, and don't come home. The locks have been changed. Her voice was cold, like a verdict. No explanation, no hesitation. Just that, and she hung up. I was standing in aisle 7, holding a loaf of whole grain bread she liked for breakfast. Around me, people kept pushing their carts. The scanner beeped, steady as ever. The world was still the same. Only I had just lost everything. 10 years of marriage, 7 years building a company from a cramped apartment, hundreds of sleepless nights, turning an idea into a product she now wore like it was hers alone. And all of it erased with a single tap on a screen. Before the call ended, I caught the faint sound of my mother-in-law's laugh. Small, but enough to tell me this wasn't just a business decision. This was a clean kill, planned to the last detail. I didn't know whether to put the bread back or put down the last 10 years of my life. But I knew one thing. I wouldn't kneel. I wouldn't beg. I exhaled, slow, dropped the bread into my basket, walked to the checkout. My hands trembled a little, but in my head, everything had gone, terrifyingly clear. Emma thought she'd locked every door on me. She didn't know. There's still one key, only I hold. Not the house key, not the office key, but the key that could bring her whole kingdom crashing down. My name is Ethan Miller. I'm 38. A few months ago, if you'd asked me who I was, I would have answered without thinking. A software engineer, co-founder of one of the leading data analytics firms. Now, all I know is I'm a man, my own wife erased from both my career and my life. I met Emma in our senior year of college. She was studying business. I was in computer science. We crossed paths at a startup seminar. Emma was the one on stage, giving the presentation. I was the guy in the back row, quietly taking notes. When she stepped down, I asked her, "You said data will change the world, but do you think it can predict your own future?" She smiled, the kind of smile that pulled us into coffee dates that lasted for hours. Napkins filled with scribbles, ink-stained fingers. Back then, the company was nothing but an old wooden desk in a tiny Brooklyn apartment. I coded until dawn spilled through the window. Emma sat beside me, phone wedged between shoulder and ear, calling one potential client after another, trying to sell a product that was barely half finished. Dinner was instant noodles, or 2-for-1 pizza. Some nights, too tired to move, we'd lay a thin blanket on the floor, open the laptop, and watch movies, laughing like kids. Once, the only chair in our office broke. Emma dug through a box of old stuff, handed me duct tape, and said, "Fix it, engineer." I taped it together while she read aloud a list of prospects, and somehow we laughed while mapping out a future that felt right there in our hands. The company grew, projects made money. Emma became the face of it all, confident, sharp, knowing exactly what investors wanted to hear. I stayed in the background, perfecting every line of code. She called me the brain. I called her the heart, and I believed we'd walk that road together. But power changes people. After our Series B funding round, Emma was named CEO. Her calendar packed. Board meetings, events, magazine covers. Warm dinners were replaced by midnight conference calls. At home, she still wore tailored dresses, phone in hand. One winter night, we sat on the balcony of our new penthouse. The city lit up beneath us. I was excited, telling her about a new algorithm that could boost our system's accuracy by 20%. She smiled. But instead of talking tech, she asked, "If we sold it to partner A for double the price, what do you think?" It wasn't a wrong question, but that night, we stopped meaning us. I didn't know. It would be the last time she'd hear me talk about technology with that kind of fire in my eyes. Changes never come all at once. They leak in, moment by moment, until you wake up and realize you're standing on the opposite shore. We used to start the day together. Black coffee for me, latte for her. Sitting on the balcony, watching traffic below. She'd wrap a scarf around my neck before I left, even when I told her it wasn't that cold. We'd talk about new projects, tough clients, or just argue about who would wash the mugs. Now I wake up alone. Her latte sits cold on the counter, next to an empty chair. The smell of coffee still lingers, but without her laugh. I drink in silence, looking at the balcony where she used to sit, now covered in dust. At work, the distance grew sharper. My name vanished from the strategic meeting lists. At first, Emma said it was so I could focus on the tech. But then, ideas I'd spent weeks on were presented by someone else. The new marketing director, smooth-talking the board as if he'd stayed up all night writing them. Emma sat at the head of the table smiling, not once mentioning me. My mother-in-law never hid her doubt about me. One night, thinking I'd gone upstairs, I heard her say to Emma, "Remember, this company will only need one person at the top, and it's not him." No protest. No glance toward me for reassurance. Just silence. That's when I knew. I'd been written out of my own story. I'm not naive. I know power changes people. I just didn't think it could swallow an entire marriage. I needed somewhere to breathe. So I rented a small loft in an old building, barely 200 square feet. A desk, a bookshelf, a single window overlooking the street. In the rain, I'd hear it tapping on the tin roof. In winter, the wind slid through the cracks, and I'd pull my sweater tighter. There. I wasn't a CTO. I wasn't the CEO's husband. I was just me, Ethan, with a laptop, a black leather notebook, and ideas no one else had seen. I rebuilt the whole system from scratch, kept it offline, never touching the company servers. Page after page in the notebook filled with diagrams, symbols, code. Each night, closing my laptop at 1 a.m., I'd look out at the empty street and feel like I was holding a secret that could tip the entire board. Back then, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I just knew this loft was the only thing still mine. And then, one afternoon, everything changed. Sooner than I expected. That afternoon, rain tapped softly on the tin roof. I was bent over my notes when my phone buzzed. Urgent internal meeting. All senior management required. 1 hour from now. No text from Emma. No reminder from her assistant. Like I'd just slipped onto the invite list by accident. The boardroom on the 15th floor smelled of polished wood. The AC was cold enough to numb my hands. Everyone was already in place. Emma sat at the head of the table. White blazer, hair in a tight bun, face smooth, unreadable. To her right, my mother-in-law. Her eyes sharp, reminding me whose ground I was standing on. To her left, Kyle, the new marketing director. Black suit. A smile ready, even when it wasn't needed. I took a seat at the far end. On the screen, AI System Development Strategy, Q3. I knew every chart, every data set. It was the report I'd sent Emma 2 weeks ago. The one she said she'd passed to PR for formatting. Now, Kyle was on his feet, pitching it like he'd stayed up all night making it from scratch. His voice smooth. At one point, his eyes flicked to me, just for a second, but enough to flash that little spark of triumph. This will be the core platform for the next 12 months, and all intellectual property rights now belong to Echelon Tech. A cold knife to the gut. I knew I'd never signed anything like that. I looked at Emma. Back straight, lips curved ever so slightly as Kyle wrapped up. I'd seen that look before, 5 years ago, when she first stood in front of investors, presenting my product. Back then, her eyes had found mine in the crowd, glowing with pride. Now, not a single glance. We're stepping into a new era, Emma said, rising to her feet. Those who can't keep up will be left behind. The room stayed silent, but I felt eyes sliding toward me. When the meeting broke, I packed my notebook and turned to leave. Kyle stepped in my way, tilted his head, smiling like it was a joke. How's it feel? Getting outplayed? Bet it's hard to swallow. I met his gaze. Enjoy it while you can. Then I walked out, leaving his smug laugh behind me. I didn't go back to the loft. Instead, I found a corner table at an old cafe, window fogged, rain streaking the glass. I opened my laptop, logged in through the admin back door. The one they thought was deleted. There it was. The latest system update, the one I'd built in secret, and a hidden folder, IP transfer agreement, a draft contract transferring ownership, with the signature line left blank for me. The date, backdated 2 months. I closed the laptop. Outside, the rain hit harder. No doubt left. They were going to erase me, make it official with a forged signature. That night, I went back to the loft, took out my leather notebook, my external drive, and a small encrypted USB hidden in my backpack lining. I backed up the full completed system, the version only I could run. I didn't destroy anything, But I pulled the one critical piece. So if they tried to use it, the whole thing would freeze. A sudden knock at the door. 3 times. Slow. I froze. No one was supposed to know about this place. Then a voice, male, muffled through the rain. "We need to talk. Before it's too late." I stood, gripping the USB in my pocket. The rain outside beat harder on the window, matching my heartbeat. "Who is it?" I called, steadying my voice. "It's me, Daniel." The name hit like a pin in my memory. Daniel, the former head of security. The guy who'd patched system holes with me at 3A. 6 months ago, he vanished from the company, leaving only one email. "It's time for me to stay silent." I unlocked the door. Daniel stepped in, coat soaked through, eyes sweeping the room like he was searching for hidden cameras. He set a brown envelope on the table. "We don't have much time," he rasped. "Look." Inside, the same IP transfer contract I'd seen in the system, but this time, with my signature. Perfect handwriting. Perfect digital stamp. So perfect even I had to look twice. "They hired a forgery firm," Daniel said, eyes heavy. "I know because I used to manage their security. But this is just part of it." He paused, letting the weight of it sink in. "Emma and the board are negotiating to sell the entire platform to an international conglomerate. The deal's worth 10 times any sale they've ever made. But to sell all of it, they need this contract. They need you erased from history." I leaned back in my chair, and somewhere in my head, I heard Emma's voice from years ago, when we first built the company together. "Ethan, no matter what happens, we'll never sell its soul." Now, she was the one writing the price tag for that soul. "Why tell me?" I asked. Daniel gave a thin smile, rolling up his sleeve, revealing a long scar on his wrist. "Kyle forced me to take the blame for a data breach, one he staged. I refused. Emma didn't take my side, so I disappeared. Now, I want them to pay." We sat in silence, the rain outside like pins on the air. I pulled from my drawer the handwritten system schematics, the ones only Daniel and I understood. "If we're going to save it, we have to move first." Daniel nodded. The plan took shape. A ghost version of the system, encrypted with an authentication chain only I knew. It would lie dormant, invisible. But if anyone tried to run the platform without it, the system would lock. At the door, Daniel paused. "Ethan, Emma knows about this loft." The door closed, leaving those words hanging in the air. I scanned the room. Every paper, every line of code. If Emma knew, then maybe every step I'd taken was already in her plan. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Don't go home tonight." No name, no explanation. I stepped onto the tiny balcony. Under the dim yellow streetlight, a black car sat at the curb. Headlights off, engine humming softly. Through the dark windshield, something moved. A figure, still for too long. Watching, a cold wind slid through my jacket. And for the first time in years, I felt truly hunted. I stood on the balcony, eyes locked on the black car down on the street. Rain blurred the windshield, but I could still make out the figure inside. Still, patient, like a predator watching its prey. The urge to go down there was strong, but instinct told me to pull back. I drew the curtains, killed every light, let the loft sink into darkness. Only the pale glow of my laptop screen remained, half my face lit. I opened my network monitor, old habits from my security days. 2 unfamiliar IP addresses were pinging, again and again, straight into the private port of the ghost system. They'd started digging. I pulled the USB drive, slipped it into my inside pocket, wiped every scrap of data from the backup laptop. Before leaving, I photographed the schematics, the notes, then scanned the room, like I was seeing it for the last time. The old wooden stairs groaned under my weight. Outside, the black car's engine went silent. A door opened. Footsteps, heavy, slow, deliberate, folding into the sound of rain. I didn't look back. Out on the street, I blended into a small crowd, huddled under the awning of a corner store. Phone in hand, pretending to text, I sent Daniel a single message. "Being tailed. Meet at Point C. Now." Point C? An old Chinese restaurant with no cameras and phone signal so weak, no one stayed long. I got there first. The smell of sesame oil, the clang of woks, covering every other sound. Daniel arrived minutes later, drenched, tense. "They're accelerating," I murmured. "Unfamiliar IPs just probed the access port." He sat, breathing hard. I just saw a black SUV outside my place. Drove off when I stepped out. They're not only after you. Before I could respond, a young waiter appeared. Set down a plain white envelope. No name. Messy handwriting. You don't know everything, Ethan. Inside, a blurred photograph. Daniel and me at the cafe earlier today, shot through a rain-streaked window. But it wasn't the grainy quality that froze my blood. It was Emma, standing across the street under an umbrella, looking straight at us. In that moment, I remembered the last time she'd looked at me like that. Not in a meeting, not in a fight, but one autumn night, when she wrapped her arms around me from behind and whispered, "No matter what, you're the most important part of me." The look in this photo belonged to a stranger. Daniel crushed the picture in his fist. She knows about you and me. Before I could answer, the restaurant door slammed open. Wind and rain rushed in, swinging the ceiling light. A man in a long coat stood in the doorway, scanning each table, until his eyes locked on us. The place went still. Daniel shifted a foot under the table, ready to move. My hand found the backpack strap, feeling the USB inside. The man walked over, hard soles striking the tiles. He didn't sit, just slid a thin envelope across the table. "Emma sent this." His voice low, dry, like reciting a line. I looked him in the eye. "Where is she?" He tilted his head, a small curl at the corner of his mouth. "She said, when you're ready to hear the whole story, she'll come." As he turned away, I caught the movement of his other hand in his pocket. Fingers tapping, the habit of someone feeling the curve of a trigger. I didn't open the envelope until he was gone. Inside, a small SD card and a folded note. "You've only seen half." Daniel frowned. Could be the real thing. Could be bait. We left the restaurant, weaving through side streets to shake any tails. Ended up in a dingy old internet cafe. I slid the SD card into a public terminal. One folder, a single 3-minute video, pulled from the boardroom's security feed. But this wasn't a meeting I'd attended. Kyle sat across from an unfamiliar man, his voice low but clear. "Once the deal's signed, you get 20% and full operational control. Emma won't have a choice." I froze. Emma's face wasn't in the footage, but her name hit me like a punch. I remembered last year, Emma slipping into a board meeting, sitting beside me, whispering, "Don't let Kyle steamroll you. I'm here, now." I didn't know if here meant with me or with him, Daniel said quietly. "If Kyle's forcing her hand, she might not be the traitor you think." I wanted to believe him, but experience told me any footage from the enemy has a reason. When we left the cafe, the rain had eased. We moved quickly through streets splashed with neon. A shop window reflected 2 figures, then 3. The third shadow kept 10 paces behind. Matching our steps, I signaled Daniel. We changed direction. The shadow followed. The footsteps grew louder in the still space between buildings. At a narrow alley, I yanked Daniel into the dark, waited. When I looked out, the street was empty. The footsteps? Gone. A chill ran up my spine. My grip tightened on the backpack strap. My phone buzzed. "Unknown number." I answered. Emma's voice, so faint I had to strain to hear. "Ethan, they're coming for you. Don't trust anyone, not even me." The line cut. Down the street, headlights flared to life. A car, facing straight at us. The headlights tore through the night, so bright they burned my eyes. The engine roared. Tires screamed on wet asphalt, like metal tearing glass. "Run," I shouted, yanking Daniel across the street. Rain whipped my face like a lash. Cold air tore into my lungs. We sprinted down a narrow alley, shoes sliding on soaked trash. Behind us, tires spun hard. The roar closing in. My heart hammered against my ribs. One thought. Only one. They can't get the USB, ever. We burst into an abandoned shipping yard. The stench of rust and old oil filled my nose. Then, silence. The engine cut out. And somehow, that was worse. 2 figures emerged from the dark. Black clothes, caps pulled low, their steps steady, unhurried. One held a phone, its beam sweeping the ground. The other, gloved, something metallic glinting in his hand. Knife or gun. I didn't want to know. Daniel whispered, "Not Emma's people. This is someone else." As one of them drew closer, I slipped the USB into a narrow gap under a shipping container. If they caught me, they wouldn't get it. A sharp beep split the air. Daniel's phone buzzed. Both men snapped their heads toward us, the phone's light catching their cold faces. "Run!" I pulled him with me. We dove through a half-open warehouse door. Daniel stumbled inside, clutching his shoulder, blood spreading down his sleeve. Maybe torn on the metal frame, or maybe something worse. The warehouse was pitch black, only a sick yellow glow from a broken window. Damp rot. Warped wood. Each step echoed like a drumbeat, bouncing through the empty space. Somewhere, water dripped in a slow, steady rhythm. Metal creaked, like someone was moving just out of sight. A metal stairway stood in the far corner. We climbed, every step squealing, announcing to the world exactly where we were. The upstairs office was a mess, yellowed papers scattered in the draft. But in the middle of the desk, a brown envelope. No dust, no damp, fresh. On the corner, written in a slanted hand I knew by heart. "Ethan, open now." Emma's handwriting. Worse, the envelope was still warm, like it had been set down minutes ago. And beside it, a single drop of blood, dark red, still wet. Daniel and I locked eyes. No words. I pulled out the chair, my hands trembling as I touched the envelope. That same slant, tilted just left, like the little notes Emma used to leave on my desk. 2 words, most times, keep going. I broke the seal. No documents. Just a disposable phone, and a blurry photograph, shot from above. A surveillance angle. Daniel and I, at the internet cafe, less than an hour ago. At the front desk, Emma, holding an envelope identical to the one in my hands. Her other hand, resting lightly on the arm of a man I didn't recognize. Her eyes down, half focused, half avoiding the camera. But I knew that look, the one she gave me when she wanted me silent. And listening, Daniel leaned in. If she just left this here, why give the same thing to someone else? The phone buzzed. One word on the screen. Listen. I put it to my ear. Emma's voice, breathless, over a background of chaos. Doors slamming. Footsteps pounding concrete. "Ethan, that envelope isn't for you. It's bait. I had to plant 2 identical ones to draw them away from you. Emma at the cafe. No time. Kyle doesn't just want the ghost system. He wants you, because you're the only one who knows the original code. If you die, they'll take it from Daniel." I glanced at Daniel, his eyes hard, jaw tight. "Ethan, there's a hard drive in the basement safe of the old building. The code is the day we met. Get it before Kyle. And," her voice faltered, as if swallowing something back, "go alone." A crash on her end, like something heavy falling. Then the line went dead. The moment of silence shattered by the groan of a metal door below. Heavy footsteps echoed through the warehouse. Metal clinked softly, tools or weapons. A flashlight beam swept across the stacks of crates. Up the metal stairs. Daniel whispered, "They're right under us." I stuffed the phone and the photo into my pocket. From the gap under the office door, the light froze, as if they'd spotted something. A shadow stretched long across the floor. And then, it began to climb. Each step, slow, deliberate, the metal groaning under the weight. Halfway up, the flashlight hit the gap in the door and spilled white light across my hands. The flashlight sliced through the crack in the door, lighting up my hands. My chest tightened, like something had gripped my heart. Slow footsteps climbed the steel stairs, each creak hammering inside my skull. Daniel's eyes darted around the room. Only one way out, a small window, barely big enough for a person. A 3-meter drop to concrete below. "You go first," he said, his voice calm. "No. We both." I didn't finish. The door handle rattled hard, metal grinding on metal. A crash. Dash. The frame shuddered, dust falling from the ceiling. Daniel winced, clutching his left shoulder. The blood from the warehouse door tear had soaked deep. He pulled a chair under the window, pushing me toward it. "The USB and the phone have to stay safe. You go. Now. I'm not leaving you. Ethan, please. If we both stay, neither of us makes it out." His eyes locked on mine, firm, final. But buried deep was a goodbye. The hinges screamed. The flashlight beam widened. Dust swirled in the cone of light with every hit against the door. I clenched my teeth, climbed onto the chair, slipped through the window. Cold wind slapped my face as I dropped to the ground outside, knees smashing hard against the pavement. I didn't stop. From above, the door exploded open. Wood splintered. Daniel's shout, followed by the chaos of a fight. I rounded the warehouse, searching for a way back in, and froze. The shadows in front of me moved. A man stepped forward. Long coat, straight posture. The same one who delivered the envelope at the restaurant. He didn't speak right away, just pulled a folding knife from his pocket, snapped it open. The blade caught the yellow streetlight. Then, he smiled, thin, sharp as the edge in his hand. "In a hurry, Ethan." I stepped back. Footsteps behind me. Slow, deliberate, trapped between them. The steps stopped. The silence, heavier than the sound. From the dark, a tall man in a hood emerged, black pistol in hand. The faint scent of old gunpowder clung to the damp warehouse air. The man in front spun the knife, the steel flashing cold. "You're holding something that's ours. Give it up, or your friend won't be around for you to worry about." I swallowed hard. Daniel's face flashed in my head. That calm grin the first time we were ambushed at the docks. The steady look when he said, "I'll stay." Now, I didn't know if he was still alive. 3 seconds, the gunman said, eyes unblinking. 3. Each number stretched forever. The cold from the barrel was almost a physical thing. The knife's click in the coatman's hand, tapping against my temple. 2. My fingers tightened around the phone in my pocket. Emma had told me to go alone, but she hadn't told me not to gamble. 1. "The USB's in the warehouse," I cut in. Steady voice. "I'll take you to it." They glanced at each other, nodded. I walked ahead, heart pounding like a war drum. Near the container, I crouched, pretended to search. When the flashlight beam swung away, I slid the phone down into the narrow gap beside the USB and hit call on Emma's number. A tiny beep. A signal only I knew was there. "Here, but you'll need to pull the whole crate out," I said. They bent down together. I stepped back. 1 step. 2. Then I turned and ran. "Shoot." The command ripped through the night. The gun cracked, the bullet searing past my shoulder, hot as fire. I stumbled, slammed onto the concrete, palms tearing open. Footsteps closed in, hot breath on my neck. I surged up, sprinting into the dark beyond the yard. Behind me, another shot. The muzzle flash lit the wall, throwing my running shadow high against the stained brick. I tore across the yard like a man possessed, dodging stacks of wooden crates. Breath burning in my lungs, sweat and blood mixed on my skin. Every step sent a sharp stab through my shoulder, but I couldn't slow down. Behind me, the footsteps faded. Or maybe my ears had gone deaf under the pounding of my own heartbeat. Hugging the rusted fence line, I spotted a break, slipped through, dropped into a dark alley. The stench of garbage, the damp air, water dripping somewhere in the shadows. I leaned against the wall, forcing my breath quiet. Closed my eyes for a moment. When I opened them, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Received. "See you soon. Emma." The USB was safe. I wanted to feel relief, but Daniel's face wouldn't leave my mind. His shoulder bleeding, hand braced on the doorframe, eyes ordering me to run. For the first time in years, I didn't know if I'd just saved him or betrayed him. I dragged myself back to the safe apartment. Streetlights smeared across the wet pavement. Car horns drifted from somewhere far away. Another city entirely, a quieter one than the place I'd just escaped. I sat by the window, watching the traffic below. My mind replayed the old days. Daniel sliding me a hot coffee during an all-night shift. Emma fixing my tie before a big meeting. We used to be a team? Not perfect, but we trusted each other. Now that trust felt like a rope pulled tight, ready to snap at the slightest tug. Kyle was still out there. Daniel? I didn't know. Emma had the USB, but did she still have her word? I knew this much. From now on, every move I made wouldn't just be about the mission. It would be about a debt, one I owed Daniel and myself. We're not done here. Outside, the city kept buzzing, as if no one had just cheated death. But I knew, from the moment that warehouse door blew open, my life had crossed into a new chapter, where everything was fragile, but more real than it had ever been. I stood, about to close the window, when a sound rose from the street below. Instinct pulled me down to look. A black truck sat under a dead streetlight. The door opened. A figure stepped out. The light from a cafe across the street spilled just enough to see. His left hand wrapped in white bandages, a limp in his step. Familiar. My heart stuttered. Daniel. The man looked up, straight at my window. No smile, no greeting, just a stare, cutting through every wall between us. Then it, turned back to the truck. The door slammed. The vehicle rolled backward into the darkness. I stood frozen, breath forgotten, only one question in my mind. If that was Daniel, was he coming back, or had he switched sides?